Baldur's Gate 3 has 3 riveting acts, filled with intrigue, murder, stealing from vendors, and a bevy of other choices to be made. Through the first 2 acts, you have a pretty set narrative of events that unfold before you. But approaching the third and final act, things can get a bit tricky. I think this is where most people start to lose traction with the game, because you are dropped at the beginning of the act, on the outskirts of the city, with no real set direction. In this video today, I want to help break down the overwhelmed feeling that a lot of people face when entering into Act 3. If this is your first time on my channel, the way I do things is by upfronting the knowledge in my videos so you can decide if it's the right one for you. So I provided 3 links in the description below. 2 of them are the maps that I'll be going over in this video. You'd never guess that I was a graphic designer in college because these maps are haggard. But the first one is a map of Rivington, and it's basically broken into 2 colors, green and yellow. Green are places you should 100% go, as they'll further the story and get you into more of Act 3. The yellow boxes are more side quests. You don't really need to do them, but if you do, cool. If you're overwhelmed, simply just go to the Temple of the Open Hand and do that quest line. It'll get you started on a slippery slope to the end of the game. The second map is a map of the lower city, and that's simply telling you that anything in red, you should probably wait until level 11 or 12 to do, as it'll be a lot harder than anything in green. I want this to be spoiler free for you, but not beat you down by just hitting barrier after barrier of hard difficulty engagements. What I'll tell you, and the biggest takeaway from this entire video, just pick one companion and start doing their side quest. Rinse and repeat, and you should cover most, if not all, the bases of Act 3 with a strong narrative that'll underline the connecting thread to your own story. The last link is an amazing item checklist created by Egon Thy Pickle over on Reddit. You can use this if you're hunting any specific item in Act 3 or the rest of the game for that matter, so use that as a handy reference guide. But if that's all you wanted to know and you'd like to sort of kind of sift through things on your own without my rambling, then please feel free to shut the video down and get back to enjoying the beginning of the end of the journey in Baldur's Gate 3. Before you head out, please don't forget to like, comment, subscribe. Each one of those things does help me out in a huge, huge way. I've gone from 89% to 80% unsubscribed viewership because of your help, but that's a number I'd still like to get lower, and every little bit does help. If you need help again too with any other subject in Baldur's Gate 3, check out my playlist linked below and at the end of the video. But let's get started here on mastering Act 3 in Baldur's Gate 3. So to start us off, let's take a look over here at Rivington. And this is going to be terribly low tech. I am not a really cool like Photoshop or Premiere or After Effects savvy person, so I'll be using Photoshop and drawing on this in the most haggard way possible. So you are dropped in right here where it says Rivington, right? That's the very beginning of this journey, and it's kind of overwhelming, right? You're here, you're like, I don't know what to do. I know I got to kind of beat a brain. We defeated Merkul. What's up? And I'm going to, like I said, do this in as spoiler-free of a way as possible, because I don't want to ruin this experience. It's a very fun experience, but I just want to give you a little bit of direction here coming into Act 3. So your big barrier here is this big red checkpoint. You can just run up to it and go across, and there's a different way to approach it, and there's some stuff that's going to happen and whatever. But the best way to just kind of jump into the game is really just do the Circus of the Last Days and the Open Hand Temple. Those 2 things are going to give you A, quests that you're going to do in the lower city, and B, there's going to be events that happen in both of these locations that are going to further the story of the narrative and also present you with ways to get past this checkpoint very easily. That's really it. Everything else is just kind of really oriented to give you side quests and little things to do and fill the nature of understanding what's going on in Rivington as opposed to Baldur's Gate, right? You have all these refugees that are smashed here trying to make their way past the checkpoint. It's why the checkpoint exists. So it's navigating the lore more than anything. So you don't even need to do anything on the right side of this map. You could completely skip it if you wanted to. I'd say, though, there is one thing that I didn't really highlight very well. It's this right here. There's a trader right there. I think his name is Mathis. He's a human dude with he's black hair, got like a fancy goatee. Make sure you go to him and buy anything you need prior to going to the lower city, and do not do it with Shadowheart, because that is part of Shadowheart's quest. And if he sees Shadowheart, he will be a dick and not let you buy his really good items, depending upon what you have in your party. Like if you have a throwing barbarian, he sells the dwarven thrower. So I just wanted to outline that because it's a very important thing to know. So just make sure you keep that in mind. And outside of these things, like I said, too, it's just a matter of dealing with a really fun little narrative here that'll bring you into the lower city to do more stuff. There's another one right here, which probably has one of the most hilarious engagements with a creature, I could say, as far as like the quest dialogue. So the Sword Coast Couriers is definitely a fun little side quest to do. And what's nice, too, is about this, the Sword Coast Couriers and the Requisition Barn, these two are kind of, well, I'm sorry, this box right here and this box are kind of linked together, and they're both part of a side quest that kind of resolves in the lower city, but you kind of understand what's going here. And the Gur camp will do something that will set you up for something in the lower city as well. But I also encourage you to explore portions of this map that I've not outlined. There are things here still to be discovered, and I deliberately put it that way because I wanted you to know that there are little tiny kind of quest hubs in these locations, but the big driving point is to get to here, to get through this checkpoint, that you can go into this location. So now this is the south span of Worms Crossing. This is the kind of entryway, the porthole into the lower city. And really there's two primary locations that you're going to want to do here. Therese's Caress, which is a great name, which is going to give you a strong interaction with a couple interesting characters. And there's a very important thing that happens that as it pertains to the end of the game that can be made in this location. So you definitely want to go here. And the other thing here is these two locations, Karm's Garm. Actually, Karm's Garm you don't need to go to. I thought that this was a different portion of the map. Karm's Garm is such a great, I didn't know that was the name of it. But Danthelian's Dancing Axe has one of the better vendors with a lot of really good items in there. But there's a really important quest line here for Jaheira. Depending on how you dealt with her in the previous acts, this is going to give you something that's going to give some information into the lower city. So I would definitely kind of jump through that. So just to kind of recap here, we're starting, what color is this? That's green? Good. We're starting at Rivington. I would go through the Circus of Last Days, go over to this location, finish all this, then go over here into the Open Hand Temple if I just wanted to get done with this location. You can jump back into this location at any time that you want. It's entirely up to you. But I'll say that pretty much, I think there's only like 2 or 3 things that will only happen at this point in the game. And once you go into the lower city, they're gone. If you've talked to a strange ox, this is the last time you can talk to him is here in Rivington, is what I'll say. I think there's maybe 1 or 2 other little things, but I can't really remember off the top of my head. But that's pretty much it. That's all you have to do. And then you're over here, you're past that, and you're going over here into the Worms Rock. Now, this is, again, a big point because this is going to pretty much start you into the real end game. You know, Rivington's kind of like Act 2.5, kind of in the same way that I look at the Mountain Pass as like Act 1.5. It's like totally kind of optional, right? You can kind of streamline your way through it just to jump into Act 2. And the same thing here. Rivington, you can just kind of, okay, Open Hand Temple, right into the real Act 3. Because once you go to Worms Rock Fortress, you're going to deal with Gortash. And you're going to have some decisions to make about how you're going to address the end of the game. And you don't need to make those decisions right here and then, but it's going to start you on that whole entire process, which will then bring you into the lower city. So hopefully that gives you direction on just simply navigating Rivington. Because like I said, I think Rivington is where a lot of people get lost. They get kind of lost in the muck of like, okay, well, what do I do here? What do I do there? If you want to ignore everything on this map, just talk to literally every single NPC and do every single quest if you really want to go through that. But if you need a direction, this is the direction to kind of go. Hit the things on the left, things on the right are all pretty much optional. Or you know, another thing too is the things on the right, you're going to discover in Lord Baldur's Gate City anyway. Like you just kind of can't avoid them. Or if you're doing a specific character's quests, they're going to present themselves. So however you want to kind of address it, you'll address it. I guess too, one last thing on this character, Mattis. If you are doing Shadowheart's quest, approach him without Shadowheart and then approach him with Shadowheart, because that'll get you into the lower city portion of her quest as well. But now let's move to Baldur's Gate Lower City to talk about that. So having navigated all of Rivington, you've dealt with a lot of the kind of headache or maybe the kind of maybe uncertainty of that location. And I think once you get into Baldur's Gate, the game, it's not necessarily on the rails, but I think the biggest difference between Act 1, 2, and 3, or maybe Act 1 and 2 and Act 3, is that Act 1, you come in, you know exactly where you need to go, right? You go to the Emerald Grove and they say, well, we got a goblin camp problem. And the goblin camp problem leads you to, one of two ways to deal with it. And then, hey, but we both know as you're kind of dealing with that situation, you got to get to the Moonrise Towers. And you go to Act 2 and it's all about getting to Moonrise Towers. And then you go to Moonrise Towers and it gets you a very clear narrative of dealing with Act 2, right? Dealing with Merkul and everything like that. Coming into Act 3, you just know you got to find the brain. And you're like, well, I don't know. I don't know where it is. So I think that kind of analysis paralysis and that sense of being overwhelmed is in a lot of ways a role-playing choice that Larian has made, even though Larian said like, hey, in the future, we won't have you be as overwhelmed in Act 3 like you were in this game. But I think it was try to make you feel you are completely lost in the woods. And that's kind of what you come into here. And when you jump into the lower city, you have a mission set for you to A, of course, find the brain, but B, however you dealt with your conversation with Gortash, that's going to color the way that you approach this lower city. But you've also dealt with the open hand, and you've had some maybe conversations with other characters in Rivington that has created situations for you to go and do now in the lower city. What I'll say too, like I said in the beginning of the video, if you still don't have a kind of clear-cut way to approach the lower city, just choose a companion. Hey, you know what? I'm going to do the Pale Elf quest. Hey, I'm going to do the Wizards of Waterdeep quest. Hey, I'm going to do whatever quest it is for whatever companion I've got with me, because they all will find their conclusion here in Act 3. Karlach's quest has its conclusion, at least as far as like the next step. And then it's just going to push you through every little thing. Because if you do all the quests of all the characters that you are primarily playing with, then it's going to cover all these big locations, right? Like, maybe, I don't think this is a spoiler, Sorcerer Sundries makes sense. So I've got Gale in my party. Gale wants to do the Wizards of Waterdeep quest. And he says, well, you know what? There's no better repository of knowledge and books than in the Sorceress Sundries. So that's where I'm going to go. And the Sorceress Sundries will lead you to other portions of Act 3 to branch out from there. Or, you know what? You'll tie a bow on that, and you're going to do Jaheira's quest. And I didn't have Jaheira in my party, and I put her in my party because I wanted to interact with certain things in Act 3 that are only there if I did it with Jaheira, or easier if I did it with Jaheira. So if you still don't have direction too, like I did my 3 character quests and I just don't know what the fuck I'm doing, just put another character in and have fun with it. I think that's the kind of big thing too when you comes to Act 3 is have fun with this, go slow, and enjoy every little bit that there is. In my honor mode playthrough, I just like kind of blitz through to the very end. In my balanced playthrough, I have done everything. I went to the Philgrave's Mansion. I went to Felgir's Heapside Strand. I went to the Elfsong Tavern, the Sorcerer Sundry, all these little places to do every little thing. And I didn't need to, but I loved the lore and the narrative and all the juice within it. So don't feel like you have to hit a set checklist and a certain way of doing this, or else you're not going to have a good, fun experience. Fuck that. Play the game exactly how you want. It's an RPG, so just enjoy every little thing that Act 3 has to give you. So with that now finally being said, like fucking 5 minutes into this section, we start right here, right at the Basilisk Gate. That's where we come into the lower city, so through the Worms Rock Fortress. So from there, you kind of navigate through this however you want to do this, right? These places in green, like I've said, are places that you're probably going to be just fine to go to the second you jump into Act 3. But the Devil's Fee, House of Grief, this place right here, I would definitely wait until I'm level 12. Philgrave's Mansion and all this stuff over here at the Heapside Strand, you're fine to do it, not at level 12. You will find there's a quest that starts down here that I wouldn't complete depending on how you take the quest until I'm level 12 as far as Philgrave's Mansion goes. And also the things in those 2 locations are completely optional. You never need to do them. So really just kind of approach this however you want. You come into Act 3 and there's a lot of evidence that you should probably just immediately go to Elfsong Tavern. Then just go ahead and do it. I will say though, this is not a spoiler. You can talk to the head of the Elsong Tavern, the tavern keeper, and you can buy a room there. And if you buy the room, it replaces your Baldur's Gate camp. So your camp is always in Elsong Tavern. It's really cool. It's a really awesome little song in there. So if you want to do it, do it. You don't need to. I didn't do it in my balance playthrough, but I did it in my honor mode playthrough. So you don't need to. It's entirely up to you. And some of these locations are going to be different based off of the decisions that you made. If you did stuff in the mountain pass with the owlbear, or the owlbear egg or the Githyanki egg, this place is going to be a little bit different for you. If you did different things with Auntie Ethel, Old Garlow's place is going to be different for you. So explore this. It's going to be unique to your playthrough. And I want you to just kind of look at these things and don't feel so overwhelmed because every little name you're like, oh, I got to do all this stuff. Just hit it one at a time. Go to one every single location. Like this location right here, it's just a vendor, but it becomes important for one character's quest. So just go to these places, learn where they are, understand their names, and just kind of roll around in this. Hopefully this kind of breaks down a little bit of this barrier when it comes to understanding Act 3, because I think Act 3, like I said, it does overwhelm you. But as soon as you come into this location, if you've done the open hand quest and you've kind of resolved the open hand quest in more portions of Rivington, as you are required to do for the quest, you will have plenty of locations across this map. It's going to tell you like, hey, go here, go there, go here, go there, from just that quest. And that quest alone is going to bring you to almost all of these locations, at least in its periphery or directly. So you're going to find plenty of direction as you progress through Act 3. It's just a matter of getting through that initial hump. And I think a lot of that hump too comes from, oh man, we just beat one of the chosen three, and that was quite the fight. Like you kind of quote unquote blew your load coming out of Act 2 into Act 3, and you're like, all right, I guess I got to saddle up and do it all over again. But rather than kind of think of it that way, think of trying to resolve the conflicts of your characters or your companions that you're playing with to really enjoy Act 3 rather than feeling like this insurmountable objective. So hopefully that helps you out in trying to crack into this bad boy. And go ahead and let me know in the comment section below if you're still feeling overwhelmed, even though I've drawn all these beautiful haggard maps for you. Whatever the situation is, more than happy to help out. And if maybe someone has played before and is like, hey, you know what, I've done like 5 or 6 playthroughs and this is the way I like to approach it for the maximum amount of lore or the max amount of just crunchy stuff that I get to get into. All those things are really going to help you out. And of course too, we do have this really amazing checklist that was created by, I got his name right here, Egon Thy Pickle. So please go check out his Reddit profile if you see any issues here. But he's got the Druid Grove in here, the Blighted Village, pretty much every little item in the game, where to get it, where, if it's a quest reward, if it's found from a chest, or if you buy it from someone, it's all right in here. So he has a really cool index too to kind of give you a way of navigating all the little things that are in it. But it's a really, really awesome checklist that you should use, not even just in Act 3, but in the entirety of the game. And there's a reason I didn't click over to the Act 3 portion, because I didn't want to spoil anything for you guys. But use this as you see fit. And like I said too, you can use this for future playthroughs, jumping into other portions of the act. But as always, guys, thank you so much for watching here today. Have a good one and take care.